On A Whim.
Hello, On A Whim listeners, and welcome to episode 15 of the On A Whim podcast. Joining me today, I'm Paul Vella, by the way. I am one of your co-hosts, and joining me again today is my wonderful co-host, our audio engineer, Shadoe. Say hi, Shadoe.
Hello, I'm Shadoe.
They be Shadoe.
Yes.
So Shadoe had his little brief stint as co-host, and as someone who is probably more familiar with the podcast than most of our listeners, of more intimate familiarity. In the last episode, Shadoe mentioned how much it took to, what it takes to work on the podcast. What I think is magic to them is science. And I have a high level of respect for Shadoe and what they do for the studio, for whiminde. And for whatever reason, Shadoe wants to change how I perceive them as a professional. I don't understand that, Shadoe. Can you enlighten me and the listeners on why that is?
I think it goes back to what we talked about last episode with the adulting thing. When you treat me as a professional, it just doesn't feel right because I don't see myself as an adult.
Right.
And especially with the studio, while we are working and everything, we are also all friends. So when Paul does his professional voice, I feel like a student who's been called to the principal's office,
So I have a professional voice?
Yeah. Well, you talk, you have your relaxed version, and then when you're like, okay, we got to talk about contracts and studio etiquette and stuff like that, you switch tones a little bit.
Interesting.
And so when you treat somebody more professional way, your voice kind of leans more towards the professional.
Interesting.
version.
See, this is one of those things I like about hearing other people's takes on me. I'm receptive to feedback, right? People can tell me pretty much anything they want, and I'll take it, and as long as it's not insulting or anything. So I hate the sound of my own voice, which what makes me being a podcast host, it's a little weird. But anyways, it's interesting to know that I pretty much code switch a little bit.
Yeah.
When it comes, from friendly Paul to business Paul.
Well, I mean, that's not too weird. A lot of people do that. And, it's weird, but I actually do that too. I'm not just a weirdo all the time.
No,
I do actually have
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
I do have my professional side. I'm not very good at having my professional side, and sometimes that surface cracks and then the weirdo comes through again. But I think it's a normal thing people do is code switch.
Yeah. In appropriate times, right? You can't
Yeah.
I like what you said. I appreciate that, Shadoe. You can't be a goofball all the time. Some of our listeners might beg to differ. Some of our fellow studio people might beg to differ. So maybe I did ask you that in the last episode, and about the time you figure out you're an adult, right? When did that happen? When was that moment? And maybe knowing when to code switch is a good marker for that. I think when I have to act like an adult because I need to be an adult in this moment.
I wouldn't say that's the only important marker though, because I've met some kids who are really good at that code switch where they can be goofy, but then when they're working, they're serious and all business. I'm just how do you do that at your age?
Probably they've been trained by their parents or guardians or whatever. They know they have to handle business, but then they can still be a kid. I don't know.
Parents that actually teach their kids to be, functional human beings.
What is that madness, right? I think
that exists.
I think as an educator, we get so used to dealing with the troublemakers or the students who need more redirection.
Yeah.
And we tend to not, pay attention to the kids not only that are excelling, that are exceeding expectations, but then the ones that are in the middle are like, you know, they're quiet. They might be struggling, but they're quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really pay attention to them. You know, so it's one of the,
as a substitute, I make it my goal to have a positive interaction with each kid in the room. And I know it's kind of hard because sometimes the kids want to be just, you know, jerks.
Because you're sub.
But,
yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, I'm a new adult that's only there in their lives for like maybe an hour. Mm-hmm. So I want them to like leave and go, okay, substitutes are pretty okay. Yeah. So I try to actually get, you know, say hello to even the quiet kids.
Right.
Because I know how hard it is for teachers to like balance that, where they focus so much on the troublemaker kids that the other kids who do behave, they just kind of, they don't get any interaction, or at least not very many. So.
Got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, just it's that knowing when you need to be professional too, though, right? You know, you have to step up your game, and you know, it's also when you see kids do it. But then, you know, when I met you, Shadoe, you know, we're friends now. By the time, you know, you were presented to me by Grover, albeit probably begrudgingly, because Grover had his concerns that you and me would get along. Just because I was very straight-laced, you know, no nonsense. Yep. And Shadoe was, woo! Right? And Grover was worried about us not getting along. Which, much to, you know, joke's on him, we get along famously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting that he had that concern, but I can definitely see that because I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I know it.
You are definitely different, and on more than one occasion, I can honestly say you might have made me look at you a little funny, like twitch. You know, like what the?
I've definitely seen you kind of, you know, do that confused look where you're just like, Shadoe, why? Why
are you the way you are? And then you've driven me to alcohol, so I mean, there's that. But then I like to think we get along famously, and one of the things I remember from that trip to Level Up Expo to Vegas was we went through a ranking system of people.
Yes.
Like so everyone's like on the scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, you know, low and 10 being great. Where are you right now? Right. And we did it for good people, and we did it for, you know, not good people. Right. And
I think we did it for like studio crazy level too.
We did. Well, considering that I'm the most normal studio person.
According to, well, and I'm what, number 1 crazy, or I'm tied for number 1.
Yeah, you and who else was number 1?
Reggie.
Was it Reggie? Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, you get us going on like, you know, whatever coffee we're on. We're both like along the same thought process. I'm just a little bit more weird about how I say things.
Right.
Yeah.
So
we're both Slytherins.
you are both Slytherin. That's even more. That's even more disturbing. See, I think of you, Shadoe, more of a Hufflepuff than I would a Slytherin.
Yeah, but I mean, again, that's how I present myself. You know, I'm kind of, you know, this weird, happy-go-lucky person who doesn't say mean things, but in my head,
you are murdering everybody. Got it. Understood. Just make sure to spare me from your curses there, Shadoe.
Well, Paul, you're on the good list, so you don't have to worry there.
So if you were to rate me on that scale of good people, right? Like where would a Paul would be? So 1 being you're not a good person, and 10 being like Mother Teresa on her best day, you know. Yeah. Where's Paul on this list?
I would put you at... Oh, that's a good question. I got to think about that for a minute.
And
I would put you pretty high on that, actually.
Oh, like, you're too kind.
Somewhere like between a 7 and a 9.
Wow, that's very high up there. Is it just from my level of patience with things at the studio, or where does that? What's such a high number?
It's partially with your high level of patience with studio shenanigans. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you are also a middle school guidance counselor, and that takes a very special person to do.
I do be the school counselor at a middle school, so yes,
Yep. But also just what you do with the volunteering trips to Mexico, that puts you higher up on the good people list.
Oh,
because I mean,
you
how many
listen to my
people
rantings.
do that?
You do listen to my
I do.
rantings.
I do.
Yeah, and the cool thing is we're going to go back to Mexico next month. We're starting in-person trips again. So,
ooh, awesome.
yeah, we did a trial run this past month, and so listener, this is episode 15 of the On A Whim podcast. If you didn't know, Paul, your co-host, I go down to Mexico and take food to orphanages on about a once a month basis. Up until the quarantine times, until last March actually was the last trip. And the first time in I don't know how many years we did not go on a trip more than 2 months in a row. And that was very different because that's something I like to do. I like helping people. Hence the counseling job, hence the volunteer work, hence why Shadoe's putting me on a 7 or 8 or a 9 on a good person list. But and then, so who would be like a 1 or a 2? Like if you were to personify a 1 or a 2 Shadoe, who would that be?
That is a very good question. I do actually have somebody in mind, and you probably know who I'm thinking.
Oh, I know. I'm pretty sure I know who that is.
Yeah.
But if you want to throw their name out there, that's on you. But I was thinking like in history, like a 1 would be like Joseph Goebbels, or Pol Pot or Stalin or someone like that, right? Like just someone.
Yeah, I mean,
who would have like
talking history. Sorry, keep interrupting.
No, you're good. You're good. Someone with like 0 redeemable qualities, right?
Yeah.
Like they're just an awful human being, trash. I don't know. Like, so that's being a 1. So if that's the person I'm thinking of that you're thinking of, damn.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I'm putting him probably a little lower than I should, but I have a very low opinion of that person.
I can't imagine why. Yeah.
Yeah. And listener, I am intentionally omitting names here because I choose to be the higher person and not drag somebody's name through the mud. You
are good people, so we don't mean to play the pronoun game, but we're going to this time around.
Yeah, this is one case where I'm just like, you know what? It's what happened was in the past, and I mean, I don't want to drag people through. It's possible he's a different person, but my experience puts him at a 2.
Got it. Well, after comparing him to Joseph Goebbels, I don't think he's on that. You're like, Paul, I mean, you didn't know you don't know this person like I do.
I mean, that might also just be my own personal saltiness coming through, but I mean,
I can respect that. I know they did quite a number on you, so that's I don't blame you at all for that. But this rating system is relative, right? To what a person to me could be a 1 or a 2, to someone else there could be a 4 or a 5, which leads me to this next question: what is a 5? What is someone like strictly in the middle, right? Like they're not good, they're not a great person, but they're also not, Joseph Goebbels.
That is a good question. I don't know of anybody that I can specifically be like, this person is a 5. Because what I picture is that generic office worker stereotype that Hollywood plays, where they don't go out of their way to do good things, but they're also not being, particularly evil. They just exist.
Yeah, they just. So I'm thinking the guy that Tony Stark calls out in the first Avengers movie for playing Galaga. That's who I think of for a 5.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so when Tony Stark gets to the helicarrier and he says, "That man is playing Galaga," and he stops playing, he all tabs out of Galaga, but then after all the heroes leave the room, he looks around and then goes back to playing Galaga. Even though he is serving on a super advanced warship, working alongside a literal god in the MCU I almost said MCU universe, and that really would have irked me. That would have really irked me, because I'm one of those people that can't say ATM machine and I cringe when I hear that. So, yeah.
Well, because, fair enough. ATM, the M stands for machine.
Right,
so
and the MCU, the U is for universe. So if I would have said the MCU universe, I would have been peeved at myself. But anyways, that's what I think a 5 is. You have any thoughts on that, Shadoe? You want to add to that, or?
No, I think that's pretty accurate. That's a good one. I totally forgot that guy even existed. That's what a 5 is. Somebody you just kind of, they exist.
They blend into your background. Like they're the NPCs of your life.
Yeah.
Right. And then another thing we made, because the road to Vegas is a 3 to 4 hours in the car, and with Shadoe singing, I had to come up with conversation because Shadoe was singing. So we came up with an asshole list.
Yes.
With one being, I guess we can start off with the one from. I guess Joseph Goebbels is evil, right? So
yeah.
but it's on the asshole list. It's not necessarily not being a good person, but they are legitimately an asshole, right? They're not evil. They're just an asshole, right?
Like, I don't know if John has ever sang the asshole song for you, but like that.
Yeah, exactly. They're not evil, but they're not, they're a prick. They're a pain in your ass, right?
Like they just go out of their way to like do mean things.
Exactly. So do you remember what we put on that? Like who the worst asshole ever? And I think I have an inclination for who you might put on number 1 on this list. It might be that same person, but
might be. Like if we were going in like personal history, yeah, that same person would be my number 1. But like in all of history, I mean, there's been some pretty evil people.
Well, not evil, right? We're just talking just someone being an asshole. True.
Okay.
Right? So
yeah,
I would put Mitch McConnell, the U.S. senator, near the bottom of he's just being an asshole for the sake of being an asshole, right?
Yes.
Who else? Like William Randolph Hearst would be on that list too. Freaking mother effer started a war because he needed more ratings for his newspaper, more subscriptions.
Yes.
So, things like that, like, purely self-serving, like even, multimillionaires like Kanye West would be somewhere
He's on the list.
He's got to be on that list. Probably a 6.
Yeah.
People like that.
Who would be a 10? Who would be a 10 on this list?
I think the guy that did the Fire Festival. Do you remember who have you seen that? The Fire Festival guy?
So
do you know what the Fire Festival is at all?
I've heard of it, and I feel like I know, but my brain refuses to tell me.
No, that's fair. So the Fire Festival was supposed to be it's a documentary on Netflix and Hulu, I believe, which was pretty much a pyramid scheme for this guy to make money. It was this exclusive, package trip to an island in the middle of the Caribbean. It was supposed to be a music festival. And this guy named Billy McFarland partnered up with a guy named Ja Rule, who is a famous hip hop person, rapper like person. And what it comes out to be, it was just strictly pretty much straight up fraud. And Billy McFarland was ready to leave pretty much 1,000 people stranded on an island in the middle of bum F Caribbean with no water, no food, I got my money, I got mine, F you kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And
I think he's that kind of person that I would put near the top of an asshole list, right?
That's fair.
And, and I'm sure there's a Karen rating system out there too, right?
Is there.
The level of how, on the scale of 1 to Karen, how pissed off are you kind of thing.
So, all right, I have a question for you.
Hit me.
Concerning the asshole list. Do you know what DashCon is?
A Dash Con or Dash Camp?
DashCon, Dash Convention.
No, I don't.
Okay, so the story behind that, it was a convention several years ago that was set up for Tumblr, but they took all these people's money and promised them big things. And when people got to the convention center, there was no convention, essentially.
It was just an empty space. It's Tumblr, right? Space. It's empty. It's Tumblr
it was like
after the porn.
Empty space. They had a pool, like a little inflatable pool, kiddie pool filled with those little balls that are like the play pit at like fast food places, and that was about it. So like on the scale of 1 to 10 on the asshole scale, where would those people fit in? Because they like
So the
con
question,
people out of money.
if you con people out of money, right? Like Bernie Madoff just died, right? You know, the
Right.
Ponzi scheme. Like a person like him who you are targeting people and just taking their money. I'm pretty sure, you know, if one is like the king of the assholes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a 10 is you're just being a dick. I would put I think that's a fair rating system.
Yeah.
I would put like a Bernie Madoff at a 1 or a 2. And
Okay.
anyone who cons people out of money, probably at a 3 or a 4.
Okay.
Like you're not taking away their life savings, right? Like Bernie Madoff did.
Yeah.
But you're also not, you're not innocent either. You intended to commit fraud, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, consider the kind of people who are on Tumblr. They're like teenagers most often. So you didn't just con people out of money. You took advantage of teenagers who wanted to connect with others.
Right.
And you promised them big things, and then you didn't deliver.
You delivered a kiddie pool filled with weird fast food playpen balls. That's great.
Yeah. I think for me, they'd probably be about a 3 just because of that. Like, taking money from adults is one thing, but like scamming teenagers and like, I don't know, people who aren't so world savvy, that's low.
Yeah, there's the old saying, right? There's a special place in hell for people that do that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then assholes probably to anyone who hurts animals, like, that I'm sure that's a 1 on anyone's list.
Yeah.
Like Walt Disney probably deserves to be near the bottom, right? The whole making the lemmings run off the cliff for the sake of the documentary,
Yeah,
and,
well, I mean,
not to mention the whole anti-Semitic thing, right? But that's
I mean, that's beside the point. He's guilty of a lot of other things too. So I'd say he's probably like a 1 or a 2.
Yeah, exactly. Despite him, the vision he had, brings so many people fun and joy. It doesn't take away from the fact that he was an asshole. So
yep.
Yeah. And we kind of briefly mentioned it last episode, right? Working at the studio and getting to work with people and knowing how to work with people and meeting assholes and meeting legitimately good people. That's part of the fun, right? I mean, I got to see. I have to say that working with everyone at the studio, I have met everything in between from like Shadoe, the person Shadoe mentioned, that asshole person. And then probably people as good or quote unquote as good as me or even nicer people, right?
Yeah.
Incredibly talented people. And let me ask you this, Shadoe, how I being a day 0 person, like we talked in the last episode.
Yep.
To seeing where the studio is now. What's your thoughts on that? Just, being part of something. I mean, did you ever think it was going to get this big, this fast, I guess? I mean, 10 years is not that fast, but I mean, relatively speaking.
Considering where we started, with just us working, gosh, we didn't even have a place to work originally. It was all just like through Grover as like our central hub and sending stuff to him.
Facebook or MySpace? Or was it Facebook already?
Facebook. I don't know. I don't think I'd ever predicted that we would get this far. And I think that's partially just because a lot of people in my non-studio life, when I tell them what I do for the studio, they go, "Oh, well, I've never heard of that studio, so you guys might not, you're not going to go far." I'm like, "Well, thanks for the confidence."
There are 3 or 4 on the list of assholes.
Yes, they are. And I'm just like, well, you know what? Now I'm going to work even harder to make studio grow on my end just to spite you. So I think
so the Grover School of Spiting People list,
yes.
Huh?
I definitely have attended the Grover School of Spiting People. So I think that's contributed to a lot of like why the studio is the way it is and why we've been able to grow is just because like our whole attitude is like, well, you said I can't do it, so now I have to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the personally being an admin for the studio, right? And if you read my bio, if you go to whiminde.com, shameless plug, and go to the Meet the Administrators, right? And it says that I thoroughly enjoy watching people develop and grow into professionals, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, as much Shadoe hates to admit it, I think of them and many of the studio people as professionals, right? As, you know, I'm going to treat them as a professional because that's who I want them to become, right? I want you to get that job within AAA or whatever your goal is.
Yeah.
And whatever you want to be, I'm going to try to support you in that, you know, whether it's just me following you on Twitch and tuning in for a couple streams or whatever, right? I'm going to support, you know, the people that, you know, my friends and people at the studio, right? So that's why I don't mind giving people that chance. But again, I enjoy watching that. I enjoy watching the development.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I never thought we'd grow into something as big as we are, with agreements with main console publishers, things. I just, us maybe becoming a publisher. I don't know. I never would have in my wildest dreams thought of that. And it all started because, you know, because we're trying to spite people.
Yep.
Because we've attended the Grover School of spiting people.
Yep. But no, if you asked me day zero where I thought the studio was going to go, I mean, I honestly can't tell you because you
wouldn't know who I was.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know who you were. I'd be like, who is this guy? But it was just because we were in the beginning stages and it was very rocky.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we weren't an official studio. We weren't being paid at all. You know, it wasn't until Paul came along that, like, Paul made sure we weren't getting paid in, like, coffee or something. Which I honestly would be okay with, but...
I mean, to be honest, I have paid you in coffee in the past few months.
Yep. And you know what? I appreciate it. If you buy me coffee, I am happy.
Shadoe being happy is a very good thing, you know. Anytime there's talent at the studio or anytime there's Shadoe working with the talent, I have to make sure not only the talent's happy, but the Shadoe's happy.
Yeah.
Because then Shadoe does the best work when they are happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I remember walking in a couple times with you and either Reggie or some other talent, and there just wasn't a good vibe or whatever.
No.
And there was just, nope, Shadoe.exe is not working today.
Well,
and
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, right? You know, some days you're on and some days you're not. And I think working at the studio helped me develop that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Like you tell me if I'm wrong, Shadoe, but I really never push people. You know,
yeah.
I have high expectations. You know, I want you to be professional, but at the same time, I'm not going to push someone outside their comfort zone. If I see you, you know, just not yourself, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
You know, I remember sitting there one time. I think both you and Reggie were on the floor.
We were under the table.
The studio.
I remember that.
And I remember sitting there, and I looked down. I'm like, "You two okay?" And then you two, I don't think responded or just, you know, grunted or whatever at me. And I looked back down. I'm like, all right, let me know if you want to talk. I'll be here. And I went back to doing what I was doing.
Yep. That was an interesting day. We were both just like put through the ringer, and we were like, you know what? We don't feel like doing this. Want to watch videos underneath the table? Sure.
Yep. Yeah. And that's something, you know, just knowing when your people have reached their limit, right? And knowing that. And I think at that point, all you can do as an admin is like, do you need me to talk? No? Okay, let me know if you do. And just being supportive, because otherwise, that's how people get burnt out.
Yeah, and we've seen burnt out people at the studio, you know.
Oh, hell yeah, we've
all gone through it. You know, the burnout of like Grover just nonstop working, and then suddenly he's like, I'm done. You know, I can't do this. Or I've done that too. I'll be like, you know, I've been editing audio for almost 3 days straight with like maybe a few breaks in between. I'm done. So,
right, and so let me ask you this, Shadoe. Is that? I mean, that's not unique to the studio, right? That's in a lot of places, a lot of jobs expect you that, you know, you got to bring your 110% every day. And first of all, you can't give 110%. I mean, that you can only give 100. Right?
I mean, there's no more to give once you hit that 100. So
yeah, you know, once you're at 100% acceleration, you know, you can't accelerate any more than that. You've reached.
Yep.
You know, you're nearing your top end speed at that point. But that's not sustainable.
No, it's not.
And a couple episodes back, me and Grover talked about kind of work culture in the United States, right? And work culture in Europe, Asian countries, they a very high burnout rate in a lot of these countries that there's not a good work-life balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's important. Something an adult needs to realize is when they don't have that good work-life balance, right?
Yeah.
Sure, you're making, six figures and, you're making, buku money, but have you spent time with your friends and family in the past 6 months?
Are you happy?
Are you, that too. I mean, do you like what you do? Do you like that stress, the drama, the stuff, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's another thing we can add to the list of things that make you an adult, is knowing when you've had enough.
Well,
and when you need to treat yourself, if you will.
I think that's a interesting thing because I feel like so many adults overlook that. Just
agreed.
And it's particularly bad in like the creative industries. Hollywood
Very
is
bad.
guilty.
Yes, agreed.
The game industry is guilty. Audio, anything is guilty of it. We're so used to having like, oh crap, this deadline, I gotta get this done. I can't sleep now kind of attitude.
What is this sleep you speak of?
Yeah. And it's actually something that I've noticed on a lot of studios that I've applied for. There was one studio in particular, I had actually read some of its things, and it said one of the requirements was that I had to live within 30 minutes of the studio so that I can come in anytime they needed me. And I was just like, that doesn't seem like a healthy work-life relationship.
No, not at all.
Do they want me to live at work? But a lot of that also comes from like Hollywood. They get their show filmed, or if they're doing any kind of animation and they need the voice acting, well, voice acting is one of the last few things that happens. So it has to happen, now, not next week, not tomorrow, now. So I think it's all these weird arbitrary deadlines that we invent for ourselves. Why do we do this to ourselves? Take a break, guys. It's not that serious.
I mean, I'm guilty of that these past few months. So Shadoe might be aware, but the listener might not be. For teachers to get teachers get pay increases every year, no matter what, right? But then there's also teachers are on a pay scale, right? They start off based on what their education level was, right? So most teachers have a bachelor's degree and their teaching credential. So most teacher pay scales start as the base. And then you can go back and get your master's, get further continuation, further education, post bachelor's degree, post master's, and even your doctoral degree, right? And the more credits you have, the further you move on the pay scale to you lateral to a different column. So for example, I started in column B of my district's pay scale, A being just a bachelor's degree. So I moved to column B because of my master's degree in school counseling. For me to move to column C, I needed to have taken at least 15 master level credits, right? And if you remember, in a master's course or any level, usually credits are between 3 and 5 at the college level.
Yeah.
Is that right, Shadoe, for the most part?
I mean,
because high school was 5.
It depends
5, yeah,
on what you're studying. I actually had a lot of music classes that were worth only 1 unit. But that's because, the school is like, oh, all you do is sit and play your instruments in this class. 1. It's like, it's a lot more complicated than that. But yeah, so.
Yes, I do remember music and a lot of theater arts, a lot of 1s and 2s, but it was a lot more hours.
Yep.
Than the surface level, right? A lot of practice, a lot of rehearsal.
Yeah. So between 1 and 5.
Between 1 and 5, right? So a lot of the master level courses are 3 credits. So for me to move over all the way on my pay scale, I have to have taken from B to C, 15 credits. And then from C to D, an additional 15 credits. So that's 30 credits total. So I set probably a very unsustainable goal for me was by January came around. I'm like, you know what? I need to move over on the pay scale before the end of my year.
Mm-hmm.
So I set a goal for myself to earn 30 graduate level credits.
Ooh, wow.
by May. And what I did was I went through courses through my association, the American School Counseling Association. And I don't know if I should, tell on myself or anything, but I gave myself, so the course consists of, a syllabus, and you have to read these articles, and you have to read through these questions and hear these webinars and, become a better school counselor, right? That's the goal of this. So I pretty much set the goal for myself to do one class every 10 days.
Wow.
So, which is about, in theory, 50 hours worth of work. That's, and I did it.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. But like you said, it was a goal I set for myself. The consequence was I don't move over in the pay scale, but at the end of the day, I make enough to live comfortably for the most part. Look, so it was just a goal that, there was no negative consequence, right? It's opportunity cost, right? I don't move on the pay scale, I lose that chance to make that money, but there's no real negative consequence, right? It's just opportunity cost. So it was a goal I set for myself. So not only was I working as a school counselor digitally, but now I'm also, as soon as I'm logging off the computer from talking to students and dealing with working as a counselor digitally, but then maybe an hour or 2 hours later, I then turn the computer back on to go and do my own personal education, continuing education. So then the question becomes, why did I do that to myself?
I mean,
the self-improvement part, that's always important, right? And it leads me to my next topic. So Shadoe, let me just ask you point blank, are you in Dogecoin at all?
Yes, I actually just invested a couple days ago.
So before it like ran up like a stupid high level, or
no?
Okay.
So I was unfortunately on that Dogeland.io. I didn't invest anything in that. I was just in it for the free, like two Doge a day. So I would have had like 80 Doge, but they ran off with my Doge and shut the website down. So I unfortunately did not actually invest in it until after it hit over 30 cents.
Got it. I mean, that's not bad considering it went up as high as 45 cents.
Yeah.
So
I intentionally waited for it to drop down again before I invested, because I looked at the chart and I was like, okay, this will come down probably about this time. So I will wait until that time to invest. Right.
And so for the listener, if you don't know what Doge is, welcome to Earth. I hope you enjoy your stay. The midlife crisis is the first exit on the right. So Doge was primarily a gag, right? I mean, that's how I got into it. I think I got into it around January, and I just threw like $5 into it. Like, I'm part of the gag. Oh, this is funny, right? And for the record, this is not financial advice. This is not a financial podcast.
Yeah.
Me and Shadoe.
Don't trust Shadoe on anything about
Don't
money.
trust Paul either. You don't want to do that. That's bad. So I just went into it. Just, I think for the most part, like everyone, for the majority of everyone else, right? Just for the shits and giggles.
Yeah, for the memes.
For the memes, for the lols, for the shiggles, whatever you want to call them. And next thing I know, it's at, it was from 4.5 cents where I bought in to a coworker texting me saying, "Hey, Paul, what, are you in Doge?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's that funny gag thing, right?" I'm like, check your broker. So I go to my broker and I'm like, holy crap. It's exploding more than GME or AMC or any of that. I was like, well, let me move some things around, and here we are. I'm in, I don't want to tell the listeners how much Doge I have. And by the time they hear this podcast, I'm sure the Doge craze is either up over $1 or below 5 cents again. And there's probably no in between.
Yeah. I hope it doesn't drop below 5 cents, because I'll be sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's I like the whole concept of Doge, right? It's something.
It's funny.
It's like the Shadoe. Doge is like the studio.
Yes.
No one takes it seriously, but here it is, just quietly doing things and making moves. And when it's pitched to somebody, they're like, that sounds like a horrible idea. Count me in. And I think that's pretty much everyone's experience with the studio, right? Like,
yep.
Grover, you're crazy. I'm in.
It's like
the Rick and Morty.
That you son of a bitch, I'm in.
Exactly. You understand where I was going with that. Yeah.
I'm a meme I'm a shit poster. I wouldn't say I'm a meme lord.
You are a professional shit poster, in my opinion.
I mean, I wouldn't say professional, but I mean, that's just where we differ on opinion.
Well, I mean, listener, I actually enjoy following Shadoe on Facebook. Not only because I'm their friend, because it gives me a clue onto what is happening within that minefield that is Shadoe's brain. And it could go from anywhere from like very good self-help, encouraging, positive, things in the LGBT community that I would have never even thought of, right? To just pure dribble. How do you go from this like encouraging, enlightening, supportive to what the hell, Shadoe, were you thinking? Take my like.
Yeah, I mean, if it makes me laugh, I share it usually. Unless I know it's gonna set people off. And then depending on who I think it will set off, I'll either share it intentionally to set them off, or I won't share it because it's somebody I don't want to start beef with.
Right.
But with the other stuff, it's like, oh, that seems relevant. Share. Or like, that's a good point, and I feel like people need to know this. Share. So that's my thought process.
I do have to say, I thoroughly enjoy when you set particular people off. and I think I know who I think you know who I'm talking about when I say this,
yes.
Right? People who are, confidently incorrect, in my opinion, right?
Yes. They're stuck in their ways and they are proud of it.
Yeah, they the epitome of a curmudgeon, if you will.
Yeah.
Where they like Shadoe said, they're set in their ways, they're not going to change. And F you for trying to make me think otherwise, right?
Yep.
And I can see when you post something, I'm like, ruh-roh.
You're not the only one.
And then 5 days later, lo and behold, I see that person commented on Shadoe's post, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I say you are a professional shit poster, I say that because you do it with intent, right? You do it with, there's a rhyme and reason to Shadoe's madness. And I'm just happy to be along for the ride.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy the show.
Well, if I didn't, I would have unfollowed you by now, right?
I mean, I'm actually curious how many people have unfollowed me. Not because I'll be like, how dare they unfollow me, but more like, how many people did I drive to that point?
I mean, I'm sure I've made people unfollow me recently, especially with I'll be the first to admit I was a never Trumper. As conservative as I purport to be, I could never support that individual who would be probably a one on the asshole list, in my opinion. Yeah.
He is so low on the list, we had to build new floors on the list.
And probably either a 2 or 3 on the evil side, right?
Yeah.
They're knocking on Joseph Goebbels' door, in my opinion.
I agree with you.
Some people think very highly of him. Some people that both me and Shadoe associated with, if I can just, speaking for both of us, I don't know how, I don't associate with those people as much as I did. I pretty much lose respect for them at that point, right? Like,
I'm trying to think of who. My brain is like, because I instantly unfollowed a lot of people after his first, when he was first elected, and people were, I was just like, nope, unfollowing you, because I will argue with you, and I don't want to argue with you.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I tried to do the early on was I try to keep those people in my like Facebook feed.
Yeah.
Not because, yes, they are pissing me off. Yes, my blood pressure is going up, but I need to know what they're saying and what's going through their mind. Like just like me and you being a shit poster. I want to know what the enigma of Shadoe's mind is going through some days, right? And some mornings it starts up with a laugh, and then in the mid morning it's melancholy and surreal, and then slaps you with the realistic stuff. And same thing with these people who say they're conservative and say they follow Trump, right? I want to know what's on their mind and what is causing you. Why do you think the way you do? And I think that's something for me, being a counselor, being a someone who studies psychology. Like, I want to know what's going through people's brain.
Yeah.
I don't have to understand it. I don't have to accept it, but
yeah,
it's happening, and I want to have some insight.
I used to do that.
So
but
I've kept some of those people around, but throughout that administration, some of the things he was saying and some of the things these people were supporting, I'm like, nope, I can't. Unfollow. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired.
Yeah, I used to do that though.
Or as
I used to keep people, follow them because I'm like, you know what? It's important to have a good, well-rounded viewpoint, and I might not support what they say, but I mean, at least I can meet them halfway and try to understand it. But I started unfollowing when I realized that they weren't interested in meeting me halfway. And then they just kind of got like too crazy for me, which, admittedly is pretty impressive because I have like a high patience level and a high crazy scale. So
you do. True story. But going back to Doge real quick, and this infighting, I like this word, in these last few minutes, Shadoe, a lot of these stocks, the people that are holding the stock or holding Doge, or, if you sell your paper hander, if not, you diamond hands and all that, right? It's just another rendition of infighting in fandoms.
Yes.
And I know me and Grover covered that a couple episodes ago, but I want to get your perspective. Have you ever been on one side or another of a fandom during infight like Pokemon and Dexit and all that, or do you have any insight on that?
Usually I kind of keep to myself in like fandoms. Like, I'm part of so many fandoms, and I've seen so many of them crash and burn because of infighting. And while I enjoy watching drama on the internet, I generally don't, when I'm part of a group, I don't care for the drama. So I actually don't have a whole opinion on like infighting, and I think infighting is stupid. I guess that's my opinion.
I can respect that. So like, what fandom were you part of that you saw implode like that? Do you have an example?
Oh, so many. Because I used to have a lot more time on my hands. I would watch a lot of anime. And I hung out a lot on like Tumblr and just other internet places. And it was a lot of shipping wars. Specifically, I know Naruto had a lot of shipping wars. And I saw some of my fandom circles that I followed just kind of explode, to the point where moderators couldn't handle it. Because it was just so much fighting going on that they just shut the whole thing down.
Right.
And I mean, I get it, being passionate about what you believe is the one true ship, that's on you. You be passionate about what you want to believe in. But like, I don't know. I've unfortunately gone through so many different like fandom circles that I just can't like specifically name any beyond like Naruto.
So let me ask you this. What's your opinion on people that take so like said the author or the OP or whatever, right? The original author of the IP, the fandom of Naruto, or they say this is the way it is. This is what I meant to say. This is the one true pairing, right? The one true shipping.
Yeah.
OTP, right? That it's coming straight from them.
OTP.
Are you one of those people that would disagree with them? Nope, you're wrong.
I mean, I would probably say, you know what? You're the creator. They are your characters. But unfortunately, you have a different perspective than I do as the fan. And while I can appreciate that this is the ship that sails, I'm going to exist over here in my fan fiction world and let my sail ship. Like, they're the person who came up with the characters. And if they say the ship sails, what they say goes because they're basically God to that character,
Right.
So, I would never argue with the creator. I'm like, no, you're wrong. I might not be happy about it because there were certainly, going back to Naruto, spoilers. I never officially finished the series, but when it ended, I know everybody was really angry. So I did my own digging, and I was actually pretty unhappy too with the final pairings because I'm just like, this entire series, nothing has really led up to that. Why would you do that, creator?
Right.
Not necessarily angry and not necessarily like saying, no, you're wrong, creator, for this. Just more like, why? What was your reasoning behind this? Because as a fan, I don't understand.
Right.
But I don't think I'll ever understand people like straight up arguing with creators and telling them they're wrong.
Yeah, like I picture the nerd at the convention who goes up to Star Trek writers who's like, "Excuse me, sir, on the episode 9 of Voyager, you said, the captain said," and I'm like, do you think that writer remembers exactly what their thought pattern was behind every single little line like that dialogue or whatever? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm a different person in the fandom, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely know exactly what kind of person you're talking about. And there's actually somebody I specifically know who comes to mind. You don't know this person. They're a convention person. But back in the before times when I had a lot more time, and I would have people to go to conventions with, it was like every convention we had gone to, there was this one lady. And it was just like every panel that I had attended, she was there and she would be first in line and she would ask whoever was the panel person something very stupidly specific. And the person would be like, did that happen? Sure. I don't remember. What was the question? So I just think it's funny how like sometimes the fans take themselves and things too seriously when it's clear the creators are just kind of, oh, I caught an idea and I released it into the world and now I've got a new one to catch and release kind of thing.
Right. So that Shadoe, let me know. One more question for you. Let me know what are your thoughts so far as you as a co-host? What are your thoughts?
Ooh.
Just coming in and chatting with me for about an hour or so.
It's easier than I thought it would be. And I don't mean that like co-hosting is easy or whatever. I just, it's very weird for me to be on this side of the microphone. So I'm a little bit out of my own element because usually as an audio person, because I sit at the computer, I'm like this unknown gremlin, person that like pushes,
audio goblin.
Pushes the buttons and tells the voice actors you're good to go. And twists the knobs and does the editing. And I'm just kind of usually used to being an unknown figure. So it's definitely a very unique experience, but I had fun. I'm enjoying it.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. Can I share the story how you would threaten my interns when speaking of audio recording, can I share that story, Shadoe?
You certainly can. I haven't threatened anybody recently. I feel
well,
like
there's no one to threaten because everything's remote, right?
That is true.
The after times.
But even before that, I feel like it's been a long time. I think that's one of those markers into like professionalism and adulthood, I think, is when you start threatening when you stop, funnily threatening your coworkers, you're an adult.
Fair enough. So what Shadoe and I are referring to, listener, is whenever. So Shadoe was the audio gremlin, as they put, and they had a very peculiar setup because of the scenario we were in, right? The tools at our disposal, right? So everything was set precisely, and the audio interface we work with, right? And Shadoe had it set specifically for the scenario we're in, for the room they're recording in. Everything was fine-tuned. And only Shadoe knew how to fine tune it per person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the rule of thumb among us admin and anyone at the studio, do not touch Shadoe's audio interface. And whenever we would get a new person, an intern, or anyone new to the studio, and Shadoe happened to be there recording, Shadoe would introduce themselves as Shadoe and as, do not touch this or I will do something to your genitalia that you would not enjoy.
Roll it down the street to the people outside.
It'll become a dog treat for the strays or something, right? Or some. It was very creative way of threatening the interns, and all I could do was just shake my head and say, "Yeah, please don't touch Shadoe. Shadoe's not gonna do that to you. Just don't touch their audio interface, because I don't think God can save you at that point."
I mean, I had reasons though, because valid
reasons. I agree.
Valid reason. But I mean, I remember specifically, like, I don't go into the studio all that often, even when we were able to. And so every time I would come in, there'd just be like stuff all over my work, like desk that I use. And you guys had like a party get together celebration thing, and somebody had like something sticky that they were drinking, and they said it directly on the interface. So the interface had like the circle of stickiness that's on the bottom of the cup.
Mm-hmm,
and I
remember that.
Yeah, I was really irritated at that.
I don't.
Yeah, don't mess up the audio equipment. It's expensive.
That equipment costs more than you're worth. No, I'm kidding.
Well, and the specific interface I use, it's an older one. It's not being made anymore. There's newer versions of it, but I really like this one. It's actually the same one Jabari uses, and that's kind of why I picked it, because if need be, he would know how to use it. And so, yeah, I just remember when it got stolen, I was really sad.
But we got it back.
Yeah, I mean we got a different one, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just remember it was hard to find because it's not in production anymore. We had to find a specific person who was selling it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we found it eventually. I think we got it
through like Amazon or something like that.
It had to be Amazon.
Yeah. But I mean,
we had it figured out.
Yeah. That's why I'm like super particular about like, don't touch. Please.
Again, listener, it may not seem like it, but there is a rhyme and a reason to why Shadoe does things.
It might not make sense. It makes sense in my world.
And that's all that matters. So listener, I hope you enjoyed this episode 15 of the On The Whim podcast. Shadoe's been a fabulous co-host, and Shadoe will continue being a co-host maybe next season. But in the meantime, they will edit. They will be the gremlin behind the buttons, making this sound good to your ears. So if you did enjoy this hour of me and Shadoe talking, go ahead and leave a rating, subscribe to the On The Whim podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Catch us on YouTube, join our Discord, interact with us, join the community. It'd be good to have you. Get to meet more awesome people like Shadoe. And Shadoe, thank you so much for stopping in to be a co-host. I thoroughly enjoyed this time. I think it's the first time we've talked audibly. We've texted back and forth, Messenger.
It's been over a year.
The first in almost over a year. So it's really good catching up with you. And thanks for being willing to be a co-host. And
well, would you do it again? I would. Thank you for being willing to have me as a co-host.
Oh no, I loved every second of it. So listener, until next time, Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Pacific time, before Grover gets on my case about that. And I'll see you. I've been Paul Vela.
I'm Shadoe.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Keep it nerdy.